left ear, that'll be fine. We'll be in good shape there. Okay, Representative, explain what your bill does.
Well, simply it goes and it keeps the district intact. I think that compared to some of the bills that have been out there up to this point, I've been talking about splitting up the district, annexation issues, things like that. And my bill doesn't necessarily go in conflict with some of those bills that are out there, but this is an attempt to keep the district intact for a lot of reasons. Practical reasons and, for student reasons, for everything. It's not a Turner fix. There's a situation out with the Turner case. It's not a Turner fix, but hopefully it might keep some kids and some families from leaving the district. But simply, what the bill does, it keeps it intact. It does dissolve the existing school board as we would have it right now. It would be an appointed board. The way it reads right now, the Commissioner of Education would appoint 3 people. The Mayor of Kansas City would appoint 2. This appointed board would basically become the functioning school board at that point. One of the things but the difference in this is somewhat unique is that we're looking at the district on an individual school basis here. We are saying that we know there's some schools in the district that are performing. They're doing well. Let's let them keep what they're doing and let them do it. And so this board would stay under the same control as a normal board would over these schools. The underperforming schools, though, they would actually go into what we're kind of calling a hybrid charter form. And what that is where this new board would actually become the sponsor of these charter schools, and they would be required to hire out the operation and management of these schools to some type of a charter operator. It could be a nonprofit, a for-profit. It could be another school district. It really doesn't make any difference. They'd be given a charter contract, but it's not a completely independent charter because there's still that sponsor is still that new appointed board. And the point of that is to give a lot of autonomy to these schools because we've been told all the time we want community involvement. We don't want to break up the district and different things. Well, this is the ultimate in being able to have a community school because we're writing the bill so that kids geographically to these schools, just because they become charters, they would get first dibs to go to these schools. And you could actually have a lot of community involvement. I mean, the principal and the parents of each one of these schools would have a lot of say in what goes on that school and in the success or failure of that school. So it's a mixture of 2 things. Once going down the road, assuming things would go well, after the end of the charter period, there'd be a choice for these new charters type schools to become truly independent charters if they want, if they could find an independent sponsor if they've performed. They could stay under the existing board sponsorship, or say they want to roll back underneath the normal school district as a normal school in a non-charter form. That's fine too. And then at the very end of the process, looking at the full accreditation of the district and how that would be defined, is that once the school district be fully accredited for a full 3 years, the voters would have the opportunity to vote on this governance. They would be able to say, yes, we want to keep the appointed board governance, or if they would say no, it would revert back to a normal school board situation, but go back to a 7-member board, not the current 9-member board like the Kansas City School District is now. So that's really in a nutshell of the things. The point of this is trying to make as much local decisions as we can in this. Get it back to the school level, even away from the district level. Get a lot of ownership in each one of the schools to get the community involved, and because that's what will help these kids. That's what will help the city to achieve, and for these kids to achieve. So that's it in a nutshell.
Under the terms of the non-accredited schools, the state Board of Education, the state DESE, will move in and appoint a board. Now, this is something that you kind of want to, you don't see that as a good alternative for those schools.
Well, I think that what we're saying is we're trying to define what we would want to happen. Whereas if DESE did it, which they can't right now, the way the law reads right now, they still got to wait another year or so, unless we would pass the bill going through right now. There's a bill going through. But right now they don't have an option. But even if they did, this would supersede that of saying, this is what we as a legislature want to do in this situation, and you need to follow along.
Mm-hmm. You kind of say, the question here says, why introduce it now when it appears the KC School District is making progress? You are willing to admit that there are some things going well within the Kansas City School District.
I think things were going well before all the unaccreditation happened. I mean, before Dr. Covington left, you could see some progress. So they did the whole, what was it called? The right sizing initiative for the district and all that. They've done a lot of good things. I think, though, that you have to take the case that we have. We've lived with this type of governance organization for decades now, and we've seen decades of non-achievement. And I think that how much longer are we gonna say, well, let's just give it some hope, let's give it some time, kind of a thing. You've got, a school board that's really in flux right now. You've got tons of writing candidates right now with the board. Who knows what the board makeup will be the next time around? A point of it is really to try to get as much of the politics out of the school board as possible. I mean, that would be an overall goal in the governance thing. And I'm not set on the exact appointed, who appoints what. I mean, that's very negotiable, and we can talk about that and during the process here. But I think there just needs to be some new sets of eyes in this thing. Because one thing in the governance, the 5-member, is that I only wrote in there that 3 out of those 5 needed to be in district. So, in which the other 2, I would hope, actually I would encourage those who appoint to get people from outside the district, even outside of the Kansas City area, to be on this board, to kind of get some fresh perspective of so they have not been involved in it and say, why are we doing this kind of thing.
This is a bipartisan effort. I saw that Leader Talboy is on the bill with you.
Yes, it is. I've talked to both sides of the aisle on this thing. Time-wise, probably wasn't able to get as many signatures we wanted because we're under the bill crunch as far as getting bills in right now. But yeah, I've talked to both sides of the aisle. There's still a lot of questions out there on it, I know, but I do know the response I have gotten overall is Representative, just thanks for making an effort to make some positive change here, because I think the overall feeling is everybody wants something done. People may be more vocal about it than others, but overall everybody's very happy something to be done. So I've been supported by my caucus leadership, actually Chairman Dickhouse of the Education Committee. We're going to hear this next week. This will be heard in committee next week. So we are going to push it forward, whether that be a standalone bill or along with something else going on in education, I don't know. But we're going to get a pretty good hearing on this, out there in the public.
The Kansas City delegation pretty well behind you?
Yes and no. There's still a lot of questions. I've talked to most of them, most everybody. Nobody is adamantly against it, not a one. The main question, especially from the surrounding district representatives, but how does this affect my district? And I said, well, it really doesn't. Really, if it does anything, hopefully it will keep kids from wanting to move to your districts, because there's a new form of governance going in here. Hopefully some good changes happening. People say, hey, we want to give this a chance, and we don't want to take advantage of that transfer opportunity. So once they hear that, everybody's been, okay, that's fine. There's been no overt opposition to it at all.
Getting a little late. What do you think as far as time-wise here in the session?
Well, it's late. However, though, in some ways, it was somewhat on purpose. Because as you know, I was the one who filed the bill for mayoral governance at the very beginning of the session. We threw that very early. That didn't get any traction. That's fine. And then there were several bills in the Senate that were thrown out having to do with it. And I think that something I was doing that whole time was seeing, okay, what's the landscape here? What's the political landscape? What's the practical landscape? And then along those lines too, I was really racking my brain of saying, what are some options out there? And so actually one of the cities that we looked at for this was actually New Orleans. New Orleans has gone to a school district where 80% of their schools are now charter schools after Hurricane Katrina. And it's totally revitalized their school district. They're not where they need to be by any means, but it has totally changed how their schools are running down there. So we looked at that model, did a lot of research. And, I think it was just a timing issue as far as getting through the research and finding what needed to be done and getting past some of this other stuff. You know this as well as I do with budget and other things that go on. It would have gotten mixed in with all that and not gotten traction anyway. So I really feel like from a timing standpoint, this is about as good a time as any, because now what's going to happen is we're going to get involved in some more deeper issues here over the next 2 weeks, probably, more priorities of leadership and so forth. And so I know education is one of the big leadership issues. So I think it's going to fit very well into what we're doing. And if it has about as good a shot as anything.
Great. Okay, sir.
Great.